Hey everybody, Kelly here from the Farm on Highway J. So if you've been to my channel before, you've probably noticed that I tend to post every Saturday. However, last Saturday, I don't know what happened. I just didn't have one ready and wasn't feeling great, so I didn't post a video. I had hoped to have a quilt top to show you, but I think this video is going to be a little bit about kind of scaling back a little bit and letting it be okay that I didn't necessarily get that I haven't gotten all of my quilting plans done so far for 2024. Life, you know. And so, anyhow, the quilt that I was going to work on last week, I have actually taken, and I've shown you in previous videos, this particular pattern off of Fat Quarter Shop from Sherry and Chelsea, I believe it was. Actually, all of a sudden, I'm not sure. I should have checked that before I got on here. It might just be that it's because I have Sherry. I think it's just because I have Sherry and Chelsea fabrics in here. So, but this is a free pattern off of Fat Quarter Shop called Star Streams. So I was going to use that pattern and use some Sherry and Chelsea fabrics that I have left over from another project. And I was going to start on that quilt last week, the week before last, whatever it was. But I just didn't, I don't know, I did some other quilting items. I've done some work that I haven't been able to show yet, that I'm not going to be able to show for a while. I did some stitching, you know, some gardening. Not too much gardening though, because honestly there's a lot of weeds out there and I need to get to work on that. I haven't shown any videos for the gardening yet this year just because, well, it's kind of a horror out there. It's kind of bad. But I did get some new plantings in, and I hope to keep up with it as summer goes on, and maybe by fall I'll have a garden video to show. But like I said, right now it's pretty bad, and Dad's really been trying to help me keep up with it. He's been great at mowing and trimming and helping me try to keep up with the weeds out of the driveway. For those of you that have seen a lot of my past videos, we have a huge driveway that almost becomes a parking lot, and it's kind of the thing where it's nice to have it, but I wouldn't necessarily have put that much rock in, but it was already here when we bought the house, and it is nice to have it, but all in front of my garden area, it just looks like lawn in the gravel. So anyhow, he's helping me work on that. In fact, he's actually working on it. Not helping me, he's doing it. But I'm trying to get out there a little bit too. It just depends on the weekend and how we're all feeling. So I got sick for my mom got sick first, and she got sick for almost a month. She's probably still not necessarily feeling the greatest all the time. And I got sick for almost a month and spent almost a month working third shift instead of second shift, which when you work second shift, working third shift isn't that rough, but it's also not fun when you're sick for a good portion of it. But anyhow, so I missed making this quilt this year. It was one of the ones on my 2024 plans. Well, it happens. And so what I have done is taken all the scraps that I was going to potentially use for this quilt top, Star Streams, and I've actually just boxed it up in one of my old Fat Quarter Shop Cupid boxes. And then what I'll do is actually just shut it up, and I will use some washi tape to tape the box shut with the pattern on it. And then I will be all ready with a quilt kit for next spring. Because that's actually what I had planned. Was I think I had this on my plans for June. And in fact, it might have even been the end of May. But I just I've missed a few of them because of working on cross stitch as well and gardening. And so I'll have it all kitted up and ready to go for 2025. So what I was planning on working on today though is the last video that I showed was actually my June block for the Moonbeams quilt along from Fat Quarter Shop for their donation quilt for Make-A-Wish. And while I've been doing that, I've been working on the Heartfelt quilt from 2022, which I never got done that year. So again, best laid plans. And so I never got it done that year. So I've been working on those two simultaneously to get both of them done this year. And I thought, well, if I keep up with the Moonbeams one, I can do the Heartfelt one along the same time, and I will keep up with Kimberly on Fat Quarter Shop, and that'll be incentive to get it done along with her. But I was late in June getting the block done, and so then now I'm actually going to work on July's block, which I believe she did last Friday. And so, and by the way, today's June, what is it, June. It's not June anymore. It's July 13th. So, I had to think about that for a second. July 13th, 2024. And so I'm going to work on my Moonbeams and Heartfelt blocks. These should be the last blocks for the quilts. And next month, we will actually be doing the finishing for the Moonbeams quilt along, which is a top and bottom square and a, no, not square and a square, maybe it is square and square, strip on the top and bottom for, yeah, I think it's square and a square. Anyhow, so we'll be finishing that next month. But right now, I am going to get started on working on the Moonbeams and Heartfelt blocks, the last blocks for these quilts. Is there anything else that I wanted to talk about before I go on to that? No, I'm probably going to go get cleaned up a little bit. I actually just got back from work, so I'm going to go clean up and then I'll get started on Moonbeams quilt. And I may plug into my playlist of videos, and then again, I may have a lot to tell you. Alright, I feel like I'm forgetting something. I know I am. Alright, so washi tape. Let's get some washi tape. And actually, I think I have some pretty red... Ooh. That was funny. Pretty red washi tape right on the top, so that it can match my box here. That's an awful lot. Let's see if I can. Might need to do a couple of pieces. And I use the washi tape just so that it doesn't actually tear the paper. Not that it would really matter on this picture because it's just on the blank part of the paper here. But we'll do that. And then I can tell from the outside of the box what it is. And and actually I could do this. Sometimes I forget how I do them. I don't do this very often, but every once in a while. It's just nice to have the next thing made up if you missed it by some, if you missed using the scraps the way that you were thinking you were going to use them, then I just go ahead and box it up and have it ready for next year, or the next, next space that I feel like using these colors in this particular pattern. So then there it's on my top, and I can still, if I want to, open it up and go through the fabrics that are in it, just in case maybe there's another project I want to use one for and I think, oh, I bet that's in that box. But most likely I won't want to use these fabrics again really until spring. So, I mean, I could use them anytime, but you know, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I get kind of in the mood for certain colors at certain times of year. Last week was red, white, and blue, patriotic. Next week actually I'll probably be showing a lot of my cross stitching that I've been doing. Maybe like a whip parade. I don't have a lot though, so it won't be too much, but I might do that. And then my plans for later in this month, which by the time I mean, it's already the 13th, so it's going to be later in the month by the time I do a cross-stitch video on the 20th. And also on the 20th, I'm hoping to participate with Midsummer Stitch by Lindy Stitches, hosted by, and so that sounds like a lot of fun. Can't wait to do that. But again, I do work second shift, so Friday night's kind of out for me. And then Saturday, I was actually hoping to go to an auction, which has some sewing supplies. So, maybe not. But I think most of what I really would want to, it all seems pretty good. But the auction's at 10 o'clock, and I know the stuff starts on Saturday at 10 o'clock, and goes till, a lot of them are in the afternoon, and I don't think with this type of auction that I would necessarily be done if I go. So I may not go, but anyhow. Alright, so that's my plans for next week. And then for the rest of July, I actually want to concentrate on, and concentrate, that's a word, isn't it? In hobbies, do you, I mean, I guess you concentrate in hobbies, but maybe I want to enjoy some Christmas stitching and making a Christmas quilt, which I think will be a very easy Christmas quilt. So it's a Teresa Kogut panel, but yeah, I'd like to do that before the end of the month. So I don't know. Again, best laid plans. Never know. I'm hoping that if I can at least get the top done, that would be nice, because then I could finish it up in November, December. So, all right. Well, let's get to stitching. Or sewing, in this case. I don't know why I said stitching. Maybe I'm thinking of cross stitching. Yeah. Alright, well, I think I will go get cleaned up first, though. Not that I just, time to get a shower. And be comfortable. It was a little hot today, so. And actually, we've had a very, very nice summer. But it's been somewhat humid, and today was a bit humid, so. Alright, so here we are getting ready to get started on the final block for the Moonbeams quilt. I've got my pieces all cut, and I am actually starting to mark the half square triangles that I need to make. I wish I would have had some triangles on a roll, but I don't have the H200 that's needed for these 2-inch squares, so I'm actually going to mark a line. I don't know if you can see it with the light, but marking the line across the center. I have a washi tape on mine that acts as a guide, but I like to put the line on too, just to be 100% sure that I'm keeping it straight. So, I was going to ask, what about you? Do you have a seam guide on your sewing machine? Do you have just a piece of washi tape to act as a seam guide? Or do you like to actually mark your fabrics? Let me know. I'm seeking opinions on what everybody likes, and because I'm thinking about maybe getting one of those seam guides for my, like one of the Lori Holt ones for my sewing machine. But I just hate to kind of spend the money right now not knowing if people like it or not, so let me know. Thanks. Well, I was going to stop while I was sewing this block and show something along the way, but I got so busy watching Bernadette Banner's latest video on historical embroidery that I forgot to do that. So on Friday, Kimberly, when she was sewing up this block, she was talking about this portion right here, this little square right here. Let me try to put, so that little square right there. And what she was saying was that when you sew this together, this piece in here and this square onto here, they were squares when you sewed them on. And then as you turn it into a half square triangle, you have the little piece left from this block. So like this right here. So what she was saying is on these pieces, when you sewed the green on here, you've got that little triangle left plus the blue portion of the triangle. And then on this side, you've got the little white with flowers, and then this was actually this portion right here. And so she was saying that this might be big enough to go ahead and get a cut out of. So she was talking about it in terms of using just the triangles, and you might be able to get like a 2.5 inch square out of there. But actually the way that I usually do the half square triangles, I have gone ahead and when I sewed this seam right here, I flipped it around and just sewed down the other piece as well. So I went ahead and sewed this seam right here, and then this was what was on the, so like if this triangle was flipped right here, I sewed that seam and then I sewed it down here. So basically on either side of the drawn line that is the center of the block. So because of that, I've got some extra squares that I get to use on either the back of the quilt or possibly in a bag. I'm thinking maybe a bag. I have a lot of scraps left from this project as well. So this is the final block. But I have the materials for the backing for this quilt already because it was a really neat backing that they had designed. And so I thought, well, I'll go ahead and get the kit for that. And then, as you can see here, this is what I still need for the corner squares, the strips and corner squares that will finish this quilt top. And then all of this right here is all scraps. Plus, I actually have another piece of the blue background. So technically this is what I have left right now out of what I've cut already, but I had already cut strips long enough to do the borders and sashings for the block. So like the borders, I had already gone ahead and cut a piece that was going to be long enough to not have to piece these borders. So I have that whole piece left as well. So I'm going to have a lot of the blue left. And yeah, so by the time I get done doing the backing as well, there's going to be a lot. It's going to be basically a whole other quilt. I'm going to go ahead and put that back on the bottom. I probably won't even... In fact, that other piece that I cut, I'm almost wondering if I don't have strips long enough to just get it out of this piece right here. And then can keep that very, very long piece for another project. But anyhow, I just thought I'd show that I was able to get these couple of squares just by sewing the half square triangle on the other side as well. Okay, well now that I have finished sewing the final block for the Moonbeams quilt along, I'm actually going to finish my last 2 squares for the Heartfelt quilt along from 2022. So Moonbeams actually had 2 blocks done in 1 month, so it was actually we're actually finished with sewing the blocks, but next month we actually need to finish square and a square strip for the top and the bottom of the quilt, and then of course sew it all together, and then I'll have to do the backing and the quilting and all that. But the blocks are completed for Moonbeams, but they're not quite completed for Heartfelt. I still have this particular one right here to do, and then this one right here. After that, it will be assembly, and that'll be the final quilt right there. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and try to do these 2 blocks this week. Might not have them both finished for this video, but I'm hoping to get both of them done, and then I'll have all my blocks ready for both quilts so that next month I can just finish them up. Alright, I'm going to get to cutting here. Go through all my scraps for this one. Kind of set them aside while I pick out the fabrics that I need for the color chart. Well, I made a boo-boo. So, I sewing along, and realized that I had done all of these pieces with the larger size square to the outside and the smaller size square to the ends, well, to the inside on that one, to the outside on that one. So I basically had done them all the same when I needed to do 4 of this style and 4 with the opposite, where I had the small square on the inside and the larger square on the outside. So I boo-booed, and I caught it before I actually sewed them together. But by that point, I kind of thought, well, I'd have to recut. Like I had already cut off the edge here and cut off the edge on the larger size one. That's more the problem. The fact that I cut this edge off wouldn't have been any big deal. I could have just gone ahead and used the larger square and fixed that. But I had already sewn on all of these for this one. And so I had already cut that off, and it cut off too much. So I thought about going through on each set, and this was actually a 2-inch square and this was a 1.5. So I thought about going through on each set and cutting additional 2-inch squares and just redoing the right sides of each of these. But then I thought, well, it'll be the way I have it right now. It's a wonky heart. But the way I would have had it, it would have been pretty even, and it would have been cute that way too. I just thought, I think I'm just going to go with the wonky. That way I'll kind of always remember how tired I was when I did this block, and how you shouldn't do things like this when you're tired. And so that's why that one's pretty messed up. And then I just noticed in my sides, the points for the star, that I actually may have cut a couple of them off just a little bit. As in, I don't know, I think I might have been just a little bit short of what the square was actually supposed to be, and then when I cut off the one side, it created this part being wider than that part. Not on all of them. So like if I fold this in half right now, I should fold it exactly in half, and that should be my point right there, which it is on this one. But it just seems like a couple of them are a little bit off. So I don't know. I think this is just going to be my wonky block in the quilt. And yeah, I'm okay with it. And, you know, and like I said, an easy redo would be to do the 2-inch square on both of these points, and it would have just made it very symmetrical. In fact, the original design is almost like that wasn't really going to be enough I don't know. Yeah, I kind of wish maybe that I had just done that, but they're done now, and I'm just gonna go with wonky. Okay, and there we have it. Release number 5 for the Heartfelt Quilt Along was the Love Bug block. I'm gonna call it my wonky Love Bug block. I still think it turned out cute, so I will have this ready for my quilt. I have not quite finished the last block, but I'll have it finished this weekend for next month when we finish the Moonbeams quilt along and I finish up my Heartfelt quilt as well. Alright, well, I was gonna say thanks for watching, but actually I wanted to go over a couple other things too. In the middle of making this video, had actually watched a video by Comfort Stitches. I can't remember her name all of a sudden. This is like her 3rd video. She's a cross stitcher. She's really artistic, creative, and I've just really enjoyed watching her first few videos, and she's done a fantastic job. And she's talked a lot about creativity. I've really enjoyed that, and she actually it was so funny because I had filmed the first segments of this video and was actually watching some of the videos in my playlist, and you saw my headphones on earlier. I forgot that I had them on when I had stopped to a couple nights ago when I'd stopped to, I forget what I was even talking about, honestly. It was just a minute ago for you guys, so but I'd stopped to talk about something on my, I think about my seam lines on my, can't think of the word, sorry, on my table. And so I had stopped to talk about that, and I still had my headphones on, and I was actually watching Bernadette Banner. So I thought it was really funny when I watched Comfort Stitches this week. She actually named a whole bunch of floss tube channels that I watch as well, so that's not unusual, right? Creative, if you're watching another floss tuber or cross stitcher, and so it's not unusual for her to have mentioned several floss tube channels that I would also watch. But it was kind of, I wouldn't say it was unusual either, but she mentioned several other YouTube channels, one of them being the Pethricks, and also Bernadette Banner, and what was the 3rd one? All of a sudden I can't remember, but it was just so fun. It just struck me as, wow. I've watched them for years, and she is so Comfort Stitches, she is a channel that is in northwest Missouri, around Kansas City area, I believe I heard her say, and I am actually in northeast Missouri. I am a transplant from northern Illinois. And I think in her 2nd video, she may have been talking about being up in southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois area for a stitching retreat. I might have her confused with another one, but I think she was talking about a stitching retreat that she'd just been at in southern Wisconsin, and kind of traveling through that area that was familiar to her. And I just thought that's so interesting because I'm from northern Illinois, about an hour south of Wisconsin border, from Oregon, Illinois, actually near Rockford. And so I just thought it's really kind of a small world sometimes, right? And anyhow, I've really enjoyed that channel, so I just thought I'd mention that, and you might want to check her out. Alright, so I thought I'd also talk a little bit about something that Lorraine at Shaney Brook Cottage found this past week. Well, maybe it was before that, but I just saw her video, and she actually found one of these at a secondhand store, and I thought I'd tell you a little bit about mine. So this actually came from my aunt, and she had a quite a few sewing supplies that she'd passed on to me, and so I tried to keep as many of them as I could. There were a couple that were a little bit too damaged for anything that I could use, but I just love this little case. I just love it. It's perfect for a lot of my cross-stitch patterns, and so like I have a bunch of McCall's patterns. She had a few in here that I really like too, so I've kept them. I don't know that I'll ever really make myself dresses and the clothes from them, but I liked them, so I'll keep them. And I have in here a bunch of my own from, some of them are recent, but most of them are actually from about 20 years ago, and when my niece and nephew were little kids, so little babies. And so there's a lot of baby patterns in here. There's some maternity dresses in here, patterns, and some toys. This is a little monkey that I made for my niece many, many years ago, and it was very cute. And I still have the pattern, so I could do another one. I could actually do the lion on there too. Might do that one of these days. And so anyhow, I've got a lot of those in here. So I'm thinking maybe I'll take them out of the little Sterilite tote here and combine them in the box here, and so I might do that this weekend. So along with the little bin style here that I have, like the Lorraine's, I also have the thread spool tray that my aunt passed on to me. So bunch of really good threads in here, and I just thought I'd show this one. I feel like this was the inspiration for Janet Weckerfrisch's fabric line from a year, 2 years, 3 years ago maybe. I'm not sure how long exactly, but it was a red, white, and blue spool top like this, and it may have been exactly like that. I'm not sure. I really want to pull that fabric out of my stash now and find out for sure. But it's a really neat looking spool, and so I can't wait to use that and be able to then use the spool for something else maybe. I can see using it, and a lot of cross stitchers lately have been showing a video of, oh, I can't think of the name of it now, The Little Mouse by Stacy Nash. I can't remember what she titled it. I think it was Hazel. Hazel is my grandmother's name. So, oh my goodness, I might have to get that pattern and make that now. And then be able to use this spool for being with that pattern. It just would be perfect. Awesome. I think I'm going to leave that out and do that. But yeah, lots of good threads in here. Can't wait to use them. So, and actually I'm looking, this one kind of caught my eye too. This is another wooden spool. See if I've got it upright. Cool. Alright, so a couple of them got damaged. But the thread still seems fine. It's just discolored. So I don't know. Maybe I'll come up with something one of these days to use some of this for. But I definitely will use that. Awesome. Alright, well, I just thought that was so neat that Lorraine got that bin, and I've got the same one, so we'll have to talk, and I'll have to see for sure what she ends up putting in hers. Alright, well, I want to thank you for watching, and please join me next week for some cross stitch, and definitely join me next month for finishing up the Heartfelt quilt along that I finally did from 2022, and finishing up the Moonbeams quilt along that Kimberly will be finishing up in August. Alright, I was going to say see you next month, but I'll probably see you next week. Thanks. Bye. Okay, I'm going to take a page from Hobbies of Holly and come back and say, hey, it's me again. It's me again. I was also going to show you my cross stitching and the progress I've made on the Moonbeam stitch along. So obviously I haven't quite got to the very last part yet, which should have come out last week, and I just haven't got it printed out yet or downloaded yet. And so hopefully this weekend I'm going to get this little section done, and by August, when we come back to do the finishing for the quilts, with any luck I'll have this finished. We'll see. I'm counting on you to hold me to it. Okay, please don't hold me to it. No, I'm counting on myself to have that done and have it finished. I think it'll probably just be a flat fold, but you never know. Might think of something else. Anyhow, the Heartfelt stitch along, just to show my progress on that. So I've got the border all done. I've got a little bit of excess fabric on the sides, side and bottom I should say. But I've got the frame all done, and so I am more than halfway finished with the hearts and stars. I would say probably a third of it left to do. I mean, that frame took up an awful lot of it, but I don't really keep track in any programs or anything, so I don't know like exact percentages of what I still have to do. I just know that maybe by August, maybe this one actually might be end of August, September, or maybe it'd be a situation where the Moonbeams one might be finished and fully finished as a flat fold or possibly a framed piece, but this one will probably only be finished stitching, if that. I'm trying not to hold myself to that one, but it's good to have plans and thoughts for what you want to get done, even if it is a hobby and, you know, creativity in that. It's still kind of nice to, I don't want to be set in stone with a plan, but it's nice to have an idea of what's next. So, and that some of that what's next should be the things that you enjoy. All right, well, so that's my stitching on these two projects, and next week we'll have some more stitching on some of the other things that I've been working on lately. All right, well, again, thanks for watching. Yeah, not the same. It's just interesting.